In this tutorial, you will see how you can use ChipChop's virtual triggers to achieve some pretty cool automation hacks for your devices. So let me explain quickly what virtual triggers are and how you can use them in your projects. So in the development console, when we want to add a new device, we are presented with two choices, adding a real device or a virtual trigger. We've already used a real device option in the previous tutorials, so the question now is, what the heck is a virtual trigger? So let's create one and see what happens. Oh, here we go. We have a really simple details panel, and all we are asked to do is to provide a device name. So I'm going to call this one trigger 1 and then decide is it active and where it lives, and that's it. We press save and we have now our new virtual trigger showing in the list of our devices. It just has a little cloud icon, and you can have up to 10 of these with your account. If you look at the details panel, as you've seen, it's really simple. Real devices will have components panels and also information that they need to send or commands they can receive and all sorts of things. Virtual triggers have none of that. So what are they really? So virtual triggers are, as the name implies, a virtual device. It lives in the ChipChop's memory, and it's showing as it's always online, and it's always accessible. The closest thing we can compare them to, the way they behave, would be something like a contact sensor or a motion sensor, or maybe even a push button. They can have only two states, detected and not detected. A sort of an on state and an off state, or active state and off state. So why would you want to use one of these? Well, firstly, they can be used as shortcuts, useful little shortcuts for actions. So how? If we look at the web app, this virtual trigger now is showing as a button that we can switch on or off. So if you want to create an action that turns a bunch of devices on or off, to do that by pressing a button in the web app, you need to have a physical device that has a button, and then you could trigger those actions. In this case, you don't need to build anything. It just comes included, and you can have 10 of those doing useful little shortcuts for you. But that's not the only clever thing about virtual triggers. Another feature is that they don't have a heartbeat, but because they are in the engine's memory, they use trigger events. Now, we've talked about trigger events in the previous smart button tutorial, and trigger events happen instantly. They execute instantly, and they take priority over the heartbeats. So anything that you do with a virtual trigger, any change of state, happens extremely fast. It happens in microseconds, and that's where they're really good. If you want things to happen really quick, pressing a button to do something, then you can use virtual triggers. Now, the main use for them, and the reason why they exist, is actually something else. They can be used for a really cool little hack with Amazon Alexa. And I will show you what I mean, but first we just need to do a little bit of prep work. So what we need to do is go into the Alexa Connect section, link devices, and then select our little virtual trigger, and then we just need to make it Alexa enabled. So I'm going to say yes and choose a category. There are only three options here. You could choose any of these categories. I recommend that you use the other category. If you use a motion sensor, there are some other settings in the Alexa app, and I found that it wasn't really working for me, so I normally stick to other, but you're welcome to experiment. And then just save this. This is now published to your Alexa app, and you should see now this trigger appearing in the list of your devices. If it's not appearing, just run in the Alexa app a new device discovery and it will be there. So let's switch now to my other camera and let me show you what you can do. So, as promised, I'm going to show you now a really cool hack that you can use virtual triggers for, and it's all to do with these things. I guess you may have something like this around your house. These are cheap and nasty smart plugs. I bought this one in a supermarket, and it needs its own app, but it does connect to Alexa, so you can control it with your voice, or if you have different ones, then each one needs a separate app. But yeah, they're okay. They do their job. Now, how about controlling that with something like this? So this is a simple ESP8266, and I put a little push button, so a little smart button device. I'll just plug it into a battery. And this is a DIY smart device, something that you will build. But can this now control that? Now, this is not yours. You didn't make it. You bought it. So let's have a look. So I'm going to plug this light in here. Earlier we have created that little virtual trigger, and here it is. It's showing up now in Alexa. Here we go. And what we need to do now is quite simple. We are going to create a routine, and we are going to say when this happens, go for smart home, and interestingly, yeah, our trigger is showing there as something that we can use to actually trigger a routine. And we're going to say when this is in its open state, and then we're going to pick again now our little light switch. We're going to save. Then we are going to repeat the thing. We're going to create again another routine, and we are again going to say choose our little trigger and say when it's closed, pick again bedroom light and say off and save. Okay, so now in the ChipChop web app, or you can do it in the development console, in the routines I have created two actions, and you can see that this one is saying the smart button when the button is on to set the trigger into a detected state, and then this action I've just reversed it and I said again when this button, the smart button, is off, the virtual trigger state should be not detected. And so in theory, when we press that button, that should fire the action we've created. That action should turn the little virtual trigger into its on state, and then that will be passed to Alexa. And then, yes, we're talking about you. And then she should contact the device cloud of this device and switch it on. Yeah, so quite a few hops across the globe through different servers and satellites, but let's see how quickly will that work. Okay, so I think maybe 400 milliseconds in total for all of that hopping around the fiber optics and different servers. I think that's not too bad. So here we go. you can now control devices that you didn't build with your own little smart devices and using ChipChop triggers.